vastness of our civilizational records comes in when we actually look at the entire scope of things which we have. Not just, oh, by the way, Rigveda is this religious thing. There is far less religion there than most people think about, simply because people may not be familiar with what exists in the Rigveda or in any of the other parts of the Veda. Puranas, right? I started with a Puranic story. Why do we even have a Puranika story talking about Dhruva? Because different people have different adhikara, and hence different people need to be told different things, right? Everybody can't be taught calculus right away, partial differential equations and so on. Those of you who are familiar with mathematics, some of the people will have to be taught basic mathematics, right? And hence, there are different parts of the work which are for different things, and hence, we have this vastness of civilizational records which need to be looked at in an integrated way, and we need to have a digitization, which is the last part which I will come to it. So let me begin with why do I say we have vastness of civilizational record. It's well recorded that we have at least 1 crore manuscripts in this country about ourselves. Professor Vivek Debroy, the late economist, estimated that number of manuscripts might be as large as 3 crore, which is not a small number, because if I contrast that with the other older civilizations, Greece has most probably about 20,000 odd manuscripts. We have found about 60,000 odd manuscripts in China. We are several orders of magnitude larger than any of these other older civilizations. Orders of magnitude. We're not even talking about, couple of times, 3 times, 4 times. The number of inscriptions which are there, ones which are recorded are about 80,000. Again, the number which is quoted, estimation is about 3 lakh inscriptions which are found. Now, I'm not even talking about all the poti which exists in Prayagraj or in Varanasi and so on, which record lineage, etc. All of these are important records. You will find records in some of the works which talk about how to measure rainfall. Drona, what is a drona, what part of India, how much of rainfall used to happen, etc. Right? All of these are recorded, copper plates and so on. This is the vastness of our civilization in terms of record keeping. So don't be, one of the myths which people think is that we have very little record of the Indian civilization, which is absolutely incorrect. So the ability to bring all this fragmented work is enormous. Incidentally, another myth which people talk about, especially from the part of the country where I come from, people say that, all this Samskrita is new, we were completely different and so on. The largest number of manuscripts related to Samskrita which have been found are incidentally from the state I come from, which is in Karnataka, right? One of the large pieces, right? From 4th century Talagunde pillar, which talks about Kanchi, how Samskrita is very important, etc., to Sri Shailam copper plate, which incidentally is records the Vijayanagar kingdom's Halley comet discovery. They actually record saying on this date we found this comet and so on. The Aihole inscription, which references both Kalidasa as well as Bharavi. So you can date saying if this inscription was at such and such stage. All of this is in Samskrita, by the way, because there is this notion that South is somehow different from the northern part of India, etc., which is all frankly BS. And the enormity of inscriptions which you will find in the South, largely because of what Rahul referred, which is that there have been far fewer demolitions and so on in that part of the country than in other parts of the country. Unfortunately, our ability to produce the kind of scholars like Professor R.N. Iyengar is not great, right? That limits what is possible. So the only way forward is for us to be able to digitize all of this enormous amount of work which exists in India. The sad part is that I talked about the fact that we have maybe 1 to 3 crore manuscripts. The searchable, truly digitized, not photographs, truly digitized work where, for example, somebody wants to search whether a specific usage of a word, whether a specific reference exists in a certain work and so on, is very, very little, very, very little. I will give an example of mathematics. Professor M.D. Srinivas, Mandyam Srinivas, who incidentally got Padma Shri this year, wrote a paper in 2019 about mathematics and astronomy. You would guess how many manuscripts India has related to mathematics and astronomy. 10 lakh, thoda zyada ho gaya. There are only 1 crore manuscripts all of India, right? So, thoda zyada ho gaya. We actually have about 30,000 manuscripts related to this exactly one topic, astronomy and mathematics, which are known, right? Which are well documented in the sense inventory has been done and so on. These refer to about 9,000 individual works. Most of these are again Kerala School of Mathematics and so on. Bulk of them are found in the south, in Tamil Nadu and Kerala. Of these, less than 1,000 have been digitized, related to a topic Incidentally, there is a, Madhava was one of the, Madhava actually predates Leibniz when it comes to calculus. The kind of formula he talks about, differential calculus and so on, is slightly before him, right? So I just wanted to put out the figures here to give you a sense for what kind of work is required in moving from manuscripts to narratives, because digitization is super critical, and digitization done the right way. I've given you a few examples of where some of the works are. The largest library in India happens to be the Koba library in Gandhinagar, which has close to 4 lakh manuscripts in one place. Right? They've done a phenomenal job of actually taking care of the manuscripts. Unfortunately, the digitization is not as great. I will come to that part a little later. Saraswati Bhavan, which is in Sampurnananda University, has close to 1 lakh manuscripts. Saraswati Mahal, which is in Tanjavur, has another 50,000 manuscripts. So you can actually see even in the names, we are not a very different civilization no matter where you go in India. Mysore Oriental Research has about 30,000 manuscripts, which used to be considered one of the largest. As we have discovered that there are more and more libraries, we are finding that the enormity of manuscripts in India is just humongous. And I'm still referring to only the known libraries. There are, my friend Shreyas talks about the Maharajas in Chhattisgarh who have access to enormous amount of manuscripts in their own personal library, so to say, which they would like to digitize, etc.